in her gig, and bringing cheese, butter, milk, and sometimes chickens when our bascule was getting low. A little later another lot would appear, people from the village or canton wanting to see their deputy and have all manner of grievances redressed. It was curious sometimes to make out, at the end of a long story, told in peasant dialect with many digressions, what particular service notre député was expected to render. I was present sometimes at some of the conversations, and was astonished at W.'s patience and comprehension of what was wanted. I never understood half. We generally had our day to ourselves. We rode almost every morning, long, delicious gallops in the woods, the horses going easily and lightly over the grass roads, and the days W. was away and couldn't ride, I used to walk about the park and gardens. The kitchen garden was enormous, almost a park in itself, and in the season I eat pounds of white grapes which ripened to a fine gold color on the walls in the sun. We rarely saw Monsieur and Madame A. until 12 o'clock breakfast. Sometimes, when it was fine, we would take a walk with the old people after breakfast, but we generally spent our days apart. Monsieur and Madame A. were charming people, intelligent, cultivated, reading everything and keeping quite in touch with all the literary and Protestant world. But they had lived for years entirely in the country, seeing few people and living for each other. The first evenings at the chateau made a great impression upon me. We dined at 7:30 and always sat after dinner in the big drawing-room. There was one lamp on a round table in the middle of the room, all the corners shrouded in darkness. Monsieur and Madame A. sat in 2 armchairs opposite each other, Madame A. with a green shade in front of her. Her eyes were very bad. She could neither read nor work. She had been a beautiful musician and still played occasionally by heart the classics. I loved to hear her play Beethoven and Handel, such a delicate old-fashioned touch. Music was at once a bond of union. I often sang for her, and she liked everything I sang, Italian stornelli, old-fashioned American Negro songs, and even the very light modern chansonnette, when there was any melody in them. There were 2 other armchairs at the table, destined for W. and me. I will say W. never occupied his. He would sit for about half an hour with Monsieur A. and talk politics or local matters with him, but after that he departed to his own quarters, and I remained with the old people. I felt very strange at first. It was so unlike anything I had ever seen, so different from my home life, where we were a happy, noisy family, always one of the party, generally 2, at the piano, everybody laughing, talking, and enjoying life, and always a troop of visitors, cousins, innumerable, and friends. It was a curious atmosphere. I can't say dull, exactly, for both Monsieur and Madame A. were clever, and the discussions over books, politics, and life generally were interesting. But it was serious, no vitality, nothing gay, no power of enjoyment. They had had a great grief in their lives in the loss of an only daughter, which had left permanent traces. Note: W.'s first wife. End of note. They were very kind and did their best to make me feel at home, and after the first few evenings I didn't mind. Monsieur A. had always been in the habit of reading aloud to his wife for an hour every evening after dinner. The paper, an article in one of the reviews, anything she liked. I liked that too, and as I felt more at home, used to discuss everything with Monsieur A. He was quite horrified one evening when I said I didn't like Molière. Didn't believe anybody did, particularly foreigners, unless they had been brought up to it. It really rather worried him. He proposed to read aloud part of the principal plays, which he chose very carefully, and ended by making a regular cours de Molière. He read charmingly, with much spirit, bringing out every touch of humor and fancy, and I was obliged.